Hi everyone, Joshua Kirk here with you once again, and now it's time for episode 249 of Album of the Day. And I know it's been a month since I've done an album review, but the reason for that is because I am now a college student. So lately I've been busy having a lot of work to do and stuff like that. So that's why I haven't been able to do reviews lately. But I just finished my last week of classes for the semester, and now I'm ready to do another album review. So today's artist is a Los Angeles hip-hop boy band that have been around since like the mid-2010s, and really are kind of have a reputation as right now as like America's favorite boy band. Of course, I am talking about the group known as Brockhampton. I am, as of right now, a pretty big Brockhampton fan. I got into them this summer, and this is my public introduction actually talking about them. So I'm here to review their new album, their fifth studio album, which was released on August 23rd, 2019, and the album is called Ginger, and this is the follow-up to 2018's Iridescence, which is the album that first got me into the band. And this was the first project that the band did after the departure of their co-founding member, Amir Van, who was, kicked out of the band due to sexual abuse allegations and stuff like that. So some pretty, ugly things that he did that sort of got him in, that position. So the band, decided to make So the band had to do a bunch of different things, including, cancel the release of their album Puppy, as well as they released a couple of new songs in the middle of 2018. Not really, so we didn't really know what project we were going to get. And then in September of 2018, they put out Iridescence, which, to be completely honest, is actually my favorite Brockhampton album. So, better than the Saturation trilogy, in my opinion, though I will say I do really like Saturation 1 and Saturation 3 quite a bit. Saturation 2 is pretty good, in my opinion, but I will say that it's actually my least favorite album of theirs, because though there are some bangers on it for sure, I just feel that on that album, the group didn't really know, what sound to really go with. They were just kind of jumping all over the place. So, therefore, the record wasn't that cohesive, in my opinion. But Iridescence definitely is a really good sort of progression for the band. It's definitely their most ambitious album. It's their most thematically thematically insecure album yet. It was pretty much the Pinkerton of their career right there. This new record, Ginger, though I was looking forward to it, I will say that, I wasn't really crazy about the teaser tracks at first. I just, wasn't really sure what direction the band was going to go in, but they have grown on me since I've listened to the album. But I will say, upon hearing Ginger, I'm definitely very happy that, that this record, is yet another excellent album in the Brockhampton catalog. In fact, I will say that this is by far their most cohesive and their most mature record to date. And this also sort of feels like a cool new beginning for Brockhampton a little bit. Sure, it's definitely not the most aggressive or in-your-face Brockhampton album out there, though there are some bangers on here, like Boy Bye or St. Percy, but what really makes this album, I think, so intriguing is the songwriting. The sound of this record still sounds very good and very masterful. And also the performances that the boys bring definitely have a lot of personality too. So definitely one I'm really digging. First of all, excellent opening track for the album. No Halo. Probably one of the best openers of their career, in my opinion. This track Unlike most Brockhampton albums that would open with a banger, i.e. Heat or Boogie from the Saturation trilogy, you have this album that opens with this very soulful kind of 2000s inspired R&B ballad, which is very beautiful. I love the kind of lo-fi guitars on the track, as well as as well as Matt's opening verse is very good. A very catchy hook sung by Deb Never on there. I'm sure I'll find it. Merlin actually shows off his singing skills in a really cool way on this track too. Dom's verse is great. Joba's verse is great. Bareface's singing towards the end of the track I think is gorgeous and really complements the beat very well. I also love its kind of spacey, psychedelic organs that are all over the track too. It's definitely my favorite of the singles thus far because it's the first single released from the album that I actually loved right out of the gate. Excuse me. It's me. Then we have the track Sugar, which definitely reminds me of like some 1990s R&B. I mean, you can hear the TLC vibes full on this track. Definitely one of the catchiest tracks on the album. Very addictive. Ryan Beatty's hook on there is so peppy and so addictive. I can't get enough of it. Spending all my nights alone, waiting for you to call me. You're the only one I want by my side when I fall asleep. I really like Dom's auto-tune verse on there. I think the auto-tune really really does benefit his delivery very well because it's got a really cool melodic feel to it. Matt sounds really good on here. Kevin delivers a pretty catchy mantra towards the end of the track, and it's definitely one example of after the kind of depressing lyrics from No Halo, we get this song where it's a little more upbeat and seems to be kind of a love song, though not really, even though it is called Sugar, but definitely one of the best tracks on here. But then we eventually go into banger territory with the track Boy Bye, which features one of my favorite instrumentals on the entire record. It's got some melancholy pianos that have a significant amount of reverb on there, so it sounds kind of psychedelic almost. And then it's got this kind of goofy sort of ding 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 like plucked melody on there. Dom, Matt, and Kevin deliver some very animated verses on the track. Also really like the catchy hook rapped by Matt and Merlin, which Merlin also does do. You'll hear a bunch of Merlin ad-libs all over the track, like, hot damn! And the opening mantra, Jabbar me potty, really contributing to how much fun the band is having here. Bareface delivers this sassy bridge, and then we finally get Joba doing this very kind of soulful falsetto. I'm beautiful and bashful. The next track on here is a bit of an interlude, but also kind of a teaser for another track on the album. That would be the song Heaven Belongs to You, which the vocals, the rapping on the track is done by the one and only Slow Tie, who is having a really big year in 2019, and really one of my favorite rappers out of the UK right now. And his verse really adds a lot to the album. I mean, even though he's kind of in a different situation than Brockhampton is, yeah, it still has some things in common with them, like his depression and his, trying to use, prayer and stuff to try to, get over his problems and stuff like that. So it's definitely a very kind of, heavy, but a very beautiful bit of poetry from him there. And and the beat really does complement his delivery very well too, which is a little bit of a teaser for the instrumental from If You Pray Right, with its kind of morbid, sort of harrowing keyboard lines, as well as a sample of 3 6 Mafia's Break the Law. The next track on here, St. Percy, features this sort of growling bass synth that kind of leads the entire instrumental. These kind of spooky R&B samples. So pretty cool beat on here. Though I will say this track isn't my favorite. I'm not a big fan of Kevin's kind of monotone rapping on the track, and even Matt actually delivers probably his weakest verse on the entire album. But the performances on here that I think are great are like Dom delivers this really interesting flow onto his verse. Bareface delivers plenty of sass to his performance, and Merlin just completely goes off at the end, which I think is really sort of nice contrast with the more kind of subdued delivery from the rest of the band. So the band, also structurally, I think the song seems a little off, like, it could use a better structure in my opinion, but it transitions very well into the next track, If You Pray Right, which If You Pray Right, which I already highlighted majority of the instrumental, though also in the track there's this really gorgeous funeral trombone lick on there that I think is very beautiful. Dom, Matt, Merlin, and Joba deliver some really cool verses on the track, and some really clever bars here and there too. For example, Merlin has this one bar where he says like Harvard, that goes like copy paste Harvard or something like that from the BH house, and then Joba also delivers some really cool bars like stingy fingers at the door, bruh, Jehovah, and his flow that he delivers on there is probably one of the most memorable on the album. And obviously the band does incorporate some sound effects, which only add that much more personality to the verse, to his verse. Kevin has this really cool cool hook on the track. He does these really interesting flow things, and also when they add effects to his voice and he's doing the pitch shifted kind of in character voice, I think it's one of his catchiest moments on the entire album. Then the end of the song features this really nice gospel sample, and him sort of talking about how he's tired of being a fool and stuff like that, and I can almost feel his sadness almost. I mean, the ending part of this track just wrecks me every time, and I think it's beautiful. But probably my favorite track on the entire album is the song Dearly Departed, where BH really spills the beans on kind of the impact that the departure of Amir Van has left on all of them, which not necessarily a good one, even though they did what they had to do. Because when someone does things as horrible as Amir Van did, you definitely have no choice but to just walk away on them. Kevin is kind of in a state of denial here. Joba talks about feeling kind of heartless almost, as I could tell from majority of his lyrics on this album that he seems to be having a bit of an identity crisis, a little bit. Matt may seem pretty depressed, but at the same time he does have a few bars and they're sort of affirming to himself that, even though life isn't perfect, he still has to just, keep pressing on and also keep the band going too. And then Dom, he goes completely sort of bonkers on the track almost. Although the track isn't very high energy, Dom seems rather angry and frustrated about what some things Amir has done. For example, being one of the main suspects and one of Dom's best friends being jumped. So jumped as he delivers bars like, "I got all my thoughts on records y'all won't ever hear. I took a risk just to save a friend's life. Little did I know the one who pulled the strings was once by my side." And then at the end, he is essentially just yelling his head off, telling him, forget all your plans. That was all just a scam, and just do what you want. But I don't want to, see it or hear it. And you can even hear him drop the mic and slam a door at the end of his verse, which I think only adds to the emotional presence that he shows here. Here, the next track on here, "I've Been Born Again." This is one track that has kind of divided fans among release. Personally, I did actually really like it on first listen, as it was kind of a cool little change for the band to sort of do something a little more stripped back and a little more cohesive here. Though there are elements of the track I don't really quite care for. For example, not really crazy about Kevin's verse. It's definitely another pretty weak moment on the album. And I think that's actually one of the biggest Achilles heel about this, probably the biggest Achilles heel about this record, is that Kevin Abstract isn't really as strong here. I do really like majority of his kind of monotone verses, but then at other times it seems a little too casual, and I hope that he, kind of does a little less monotone on the next Brockhampton album, which, from what I heard, sounds like that is his plan, so that gives me a little bit of hope. But the rest of the band, on the other hand, delivers a lot more personality and some of the best verses probably of their career. Another element of this track I'm not crazy about is the kind of pitch-shifted voice saying, "You ought to be ashamed of yourselves." I just think it's maybe a little obnoxious in my opinion, but the other performances on here I do really dig. I like Bareface's ASMR rapping on here. Merlin sounds very. Merlin sounds like he's just having a good time on this track. And then we have Joba, kind of with a little bit of pitch shifting effects on his voice. But I feel it really benefits his performance because he's essentially singing in character here. And I've even heard comments saying that Joba is pretty much channeling his inner Amir. That's tough right there. And I do really like some of his bars on here. Dead on the nail, call me Hammerhead, Texas till I'm dead. BBQ and cornbread, like I'm corn-fed. Here we go, yeah, you want more gain. Screwed up from the woodlands. His flow on there is incredible. And also Matt's mantra at the end of the track I think is really catchy, and believe me, if that were the hook, that would have totally improved the song structure of this track too. But overall I do really like it. The title track, Ginger, is another track that is kind of this psychedelic, sort of sad boy R&B ballad that I do really like. Also very catchy track on here. Kevin's singing on here is really good, and so is some of the things he says, mood is always better without you around, which obviously he's referring to Amir there. Then Matt singing on the track is great, and then and Bareface's singing definitely is another example of why Bareface is one of my favorite members of Brockhampton, especially on this album for sure, and he's probably my favorite singer in Brockhampton because the rest of the members, few other members of the group really have as impressive of singing pipes as the Bareface does. Bass does. But then the vibes get even more depressing and downtrodden on the song Big Boy, which is another one of my favorite tracks on here. It's got this catchy little "Big boy, you a big boy now. Big boy, you a big boy now" mantra on there. Sung, rapped by Kevin. And Joba delivers one of the best verses of his career right here. I love some of his bars on here. "Who the hell are you? Who the hell am I? Don't waste my time. I got shit to do. Lost child in a lost cause. Waste a lot. Spend time trying to stay for the wrong crowd," or something like that. His flow on this verse, I think, is really well done. Is really well done on the track. Probably my least favorite track on here, I've kind of come to realize in all the listens I've made of the album, to be Love Me for Life. Love Me for Life. Just not crazy about the beat on here. Sounds a little more typical trap than I would like to hear from the band. Also, Kevin delivers this kind of underwhelming, kind of understated verse that, I'm not crazy about, and Joba's vocal melody on the track also does get a little sort of tedious and annoying after a while. "Anyways, gotta go, disregard what I say. Grain of salt, sprinkle some over the shoulder, eh?" And he uses that melody for nearly every lyric of his verse. That kind of overall hurts my overall enjoyment of his verse. But I think Merlin and Bareface cap off the song very well. The closing track on here, Victor Roberts, is, as the title suggests, the main vocalist on this track is the rapper Victor Roberts II, whom I've never heard of until this album. I wonder if maybe he's maybe a secret new member of Brockhampton. But right from hearing his delivery on here, I think he totally deserves to maybe be a member of Brockhampton sometime in the future. He sort of raps about troubles that he's had with his kind of fractured family, and how he's been a witness of police brutality one too many times, and just how it really crushed him. And I think it really does, add a lot to the. I think even though technically it's more kind of like an outro to the album, it still really adds a lot to the record. Because I think all the guest vocalists on this album really did, do this album more than enough favors, for sure. Then Brian Beattie delivers this very angelic hook after that I think is very beautiful. But then, towards the end of the track, we have Bareface singing, "If you're hurting, love yourself with my love." Like, tears spill down my cheeks every time he sings that. Like, it's so beautiful. It's just one angelic moment after another right there. Based on what I've said in this review, I love this record. I think it's a very intriguing sort of new chapter for the band, and it definitely is another great example of kind of the evolution of Brockhampton. Though this album does have its other cons as well as pros. I could use a little more Merlin Wood, in my opinion, because he is one of my favorite Brockhampton members. But I do appreciate how he does show on this album that he doesn't need a lot of verse time to really leave an impression. In fact, he leaves an impression pretty well, as he definitely does show his own insecurity along with the rest of the band really well. It's overall definitely a record that I do highly recommend, and it's definitely the kind of record that some Brockhampton fans have said is kind of their weakest because, it isn't quite as aggressive or it isn't the hardest Brockhampton album, but, in my opinion, in terms of, songwriting, sad boy vibes, production, and the evolution that Brockhampton shows on this album, I really dig it, and it's great to see that the diehard fans seem to be happy with this record. So I'm going with a strong 8 out of 10 for this new Brockhampton album, Ginger, and I'll see you for episode 250.